Well, let us start. People can hear me, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much for Chairman McGovern and Chairwoman DeLauro for joining us today, and also Benjamin Cooper-Schmidt, who's done incredible polling work for us. I am Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America. That's JOEL-BERG for any radio folks listening in. When it comes to hunger and nutrition and poverty, public policies matter. Good ones make them better, bad ones make them worse. And that's really the key theme of our event today. It's especially important to consider that fact in the lead up to the September 28th White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. The American Rescue Act and Biden administration improvements in SNAP, the expansion of the child tax credit, prevented mass starvation in America, enabled people to eat and afford healthier food, and slashed child poverty. We're going to discuss that in more length today. By law and practice, Hunger Free America is nonpartisan, but is also a factual statement, not a partisan statement, to point out that the improvements in the safety net were implemented by the current presidential administration and the current congressional majorities with nearly unanimous opposition from the other side. Today, we are releasing two different reports. The first is a survey by Cooper-Schmidt Research on behalf of Hunger Free America, including responses from 800 households nationwide who had at least one child and annual incomes below $40,000 per year. We found that the recent increases in both the child tax credit payments and SNAP, formerly called food stamps, relieve the economic and emotional burdens for those who receive them, help them afford more sufficient and more nutritious food, and also enable them to pay for other key expenses like childcare and housing. Their survey also found that overwhelmingly, low-income parents believe the best approach to helping low-income people eat more healthily is to increase SNAP benefits overall, which they prefer far more than reducing food choices in SNAP. You know, we often talk about the economics of these issues and not enough about the emotional impacts. 78% of respondents, 78% of respondents said that financial security is extremely or very important to their mental health and emotional well-being. Some specific findings about the child tax credits and the people who receive them. 83% said they use that extra money to obtain enough or healthier food. We don't often think of child tax credit as an anti-hunger strategy, but there's no question putting more money into people's pockets so they can buy more groceries is an anti-hunger strategy. 80% said they were able to live with more peace of mind and security. 74% were able to pay their rent or mortgage. 57% were able to pay down debt or credit cards. Nearly half were able to save money for the future and or make major purchases. More than 1/3 also said they were able to pay for healthcare, enjoy leisure time, or pay for childcare, with 31% saying they were able to afford recreation. Now, there was both a SNAP boost, both in the American Rescue Plan and through administrative actions of the Biden administration, increasing the 50 food plans. Say that 10 times fast. 93% said expanded SNAP benefits prevented them and their family from going hungry. 91% said they could buy enough food. 90% could buy more healthy, nutritious food. 89% could buy more fresh produce. 79% were able to shop in stores that they prefer. 77% had extra funds to spend for rent or transportation or childcare. 58% were able to go to farmers markets in their communities. By 87 to 7% margin, people who received SNAP said they preferred to see SNAP benefits increase so that people could afford healthier food versus prohibiting SNAP recipients from obtaining the foods they prefer from themselves. Today, HFA is also releasing a report based on interviews with 60 program participants in 12 states. These were very in-depth, lengthy interviews conducted by two postdoctoral fellows, Lindsay Amaral, PhD, and Gabby Gonzalez, PhD, associated with American Council of Learned Societies. And they confirmed that the larger systems had an overall positive impact on family well-being during the pandemic. The people who were concerned about their health and knew about the importance of healthier food, that the aid boost gave families the ability to afford more food for more weeks out of the month, and that there's still an enduring social stigma associated with receiving government aid. Just three quick quotes before I introduce our esteemed panelists. One of the quotes from this report, if I got approved for $250, I would literally cry. It would literally change my life. It would make my life so much easier, end quote. New quote. There's been a major glow up in the nutritional value that I'm taking in versus a few years ago, end quote. The last one says it all. When your income and your finances are very limited, and you have to decide whether I'm going to pay a bill or have groceries for the week, that's a very tough decision to have to make. So being able to receive that assistance and knowing we are going to be good for the week or the month, that's one less thing you have to worry about. Let me just say this, with the upcoming White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health, there's been a lot of debate between hunger groups and nutrition groups. Should this focus on nutrition? Should this focus on health? And I've got to say, and I know Chair McGovern agrees with me, that's really a counterproductive discussion. Of course, we need to care about both. When we ask low-income people, should you focus on hunger or should you focus on healthier food? They literally didn't understand the question. They said, why wouldn't we focus on both? And we proved that low-income people do know that broccoli is more healthy than soda. Unfortunately, sometimes broccoli is more expensive. So I hope this settles the debate once and for all, whether we ought to do once or both. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. We ought to improve lifespans by increasing the nutritional health of that food that people can afford and also reduce hunger. With that, I want to briefly introduce Benjamin Cooperschmidt, the amazing survey research expert who did this poll on our behalf. Benjamin?
Thank you. Thank you. As Joel really wonderfully walked through, I think the numbers really speak for themselves on this data, and they're very striking. But one of the challenges really when you're a pollster is making sure that we don't lose the humanity. And frankly, when you talk about the financial side, or even when we start to talk about the percentages of people who are affected, I think we lose some of that. And this survey in particular, for me, I work in Colorado, is where we're based. We work for the Department of Public Health, Department of Human Services, pre-pandemic, putting together a massive program to help the youth of Colorado have connection. And the thrust of that was dozens and dozens of focus groups, parent interviews, and the overall theme that we came out with is parents have to have time. The kids need someone available who is ready and can be present and feels pretty okay about themselves, because it's pretty hard dealing with the kids, especially the adolescents. And as you read this survey, frankly, what most comes across to me, these ideas, giving the kids attention, giving them appreciation, they're basics to people being able to live healthily. They're not luxury. And I think as much as I'm trying to express that, I think better in their words, better in the way that they've told us. Losing these benefits, losing these funds means that I find myself getting angry easier, stressing instead of enjoying life with my kids. I want to remind us also that these are people who work. This lifted stress from myself and my husband. This gave us time to be home so we don't need to work for 50 hours a week. And at the risk of editorializing, they've already earned the right to these funds and to the luxury of time with their kids. These are funds for those of us who don't quite make enough to live on. This isn't a luxury plan. This is how my family and many like me have been surviving. And I think for those of us who can always think, hey, why don't they go elsewhere for them? They don't have a choice. There's nowhere else to turn. And if work isn't giving them enough, then what is that leaving them? And I think this last quote, and I'm just going to read it verbatim: "Get off, you ass, and vote this back in because we need this. We don't get big government checks. We don't live in fancy houses. I got a single white trailer with 2 kids and the floor is falling through. We need help. Do the job we elected you for." And I'll close there and just say thank you to Joel for the chance to work on this kind of project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. And I should note for the record, Benjamin has done this pro bono for us. He can earn a lot of money doing this work. And so, respected pollster doing this for free for us is just incredible. It's common among people as a cop-out to say everyone in politics is the same, nothing matters, nothing ever changes. That's just not true. If there are 535 members of the U.S. Congress, including the House of Representatives and the Senate, and if we even had 200 Jim McGoverns and Rosa DeLauros, we literally would not have hunger and poverty in America anymore. We probably have a lot fewer wars as well. And so, the term friends and champions is thrown about very loosely, in Washington in politics, but these are true, really giants of this work. Congressman Jim McGovern, who's chair of the House Rules Committee. If you don't understand what that means, he is responsible for determining, along with leadership, what bills come to the House floor, what do not, what amendments get voted on. Absolutely critical. Doesn't get a lot of spotlight, but one of the most important committees in Congress. Ms. DeLauro is chair of the House Appropriations Committee that decides every penny that's spent by the U.S. government. That's not an entitlement program. Obviously, very, very, very key committee. Used to be called the College of Cardinals. They've diversified a little more. Since then, Congressman McGovern from the fine city of Worcester, Massachusetts. Ms. DeLauro from New Haven, Connecticut, where they love pizza so much they gave it an extra A. And I just want to say Jim McGovern has really been champion of this White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, pushing tirelessly for, I think it's fair to say, at least a decade to get a president who cared to really focus on this and do something serious and come up with a concrete plan, not only on September 28th when it's occurring, but in the months and years that follow to finally end hunger in America and ensure that all Americans have access to healthier food. And, last I'll say is this, you really tell a lot about leaders, when they're in the trenches and they speak out, what happens when they get real power? We have two members of Congress who now have real power, and they've done concrete, measurable things with it to help the people most vulnerable, who have no campaign donations to give out. They did just because it's the right thing. So with that, it's my great honor to introduce Congressman Jim McGovern, chair of the House Rules Committee. Thank you, Congressman McGovern.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. And Joel, thank you very much for those kind words. There are a few people in America who have done as much to end hunger as Joel, and he's a true champion, and he's an incredible partner, and I'm in this work and a real inspiration, and he keeps us all focused. So I'm really grateful for all that he does, and I'm honored to be here with my colleague Congressman Rosa DeLauro. For those who are listening, Rosa played a key role in making sure that we have this White House conference, because we were told that we needed to provide some financial assistance. And through her work as chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee, we were able to get the money put into an appropriations bill that basically helps underwrite this conference. And but in addition to that, she's been responsible for everything from the child tax credit to a whole bunch of other anti-poverty measures that have made a real difference. And Benjamin, thank you so much for your support for this cause and for your data. I think it's really, really important because it uplifts the voices of real people, which I think sometimes is missing in some of the debates that we have in Washington. I don't want to say very much because I think the data speaks for itself, but in short, the American Rescue Plan worked. Expanding the child tax credit worked. Expanding SNAP benefits worked. These programs did what they were designed to do. They directly and concretely help people living in economic hardship. They reduced food insecurity. They blunted some of the most catastrophic impacts of the pandemic. And what I love about this survey, as I just mentioned, is that too often, we talk about people living in hunger or poverty as if they are statistics. We don't ask them what challenges that they face. We don't ask what they need. The report that's being released today provides us hard numbers and real lived experiences delivered by real people. And I think the most important takeaway here as we head toward the White House conference on September 28th is that we do not need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to ending hunger. We know it works. we know that a little bit of extra help can go a long way. This research confirms that 83% of people use the child tax credit to obtain enough or healthier food to eat for their families. 93% said that expanded SNAP benefits literally prevented themselves and their families from going hungry. And 90% said that the increase allowed them to buy healthier, more nutritious food. So it goes to the point that Joel was making at the beginning. We shouldn't have a debate about, is this a hunger conference or nutrition conference? They go together here. And for the people that it matters to, they don't really understand the debate that some people have between hunger and nutrition. But it's not just the numbers that matter. It's the people behind the numbers. And I just want to take a moment. I mean, Benjamin read some of these quotes. I'm going to repeat a couple of them, but I think they're really worth emphasizing. And these are quotes from the Hunger Free America survey about what these benefits meant to them. You know, one person said, "This is not a live luxurious plan. This is how my family and many like me have been surviving." Another said, "It means that we didn't have to buy the cheap food and you can get more healthier options instead of getting frozen meals or hamburger helper that's loaded with sodium and makes us gain weight." And I'm going to repeat, Benjamin said this, but I'll repeat it because I think it's worth repeating. This one last quote: "Get off your ass and vote this back, because we need it. We don't get big government checks and we don't live in fancy houses. I got a single wide trailer with 2 kids and the floor is falling through. We need help. Do the job we elected you into office for." I mean, people want government to actually work for them. That's the way it's supposed to be. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. I wish more people in Washington would listen. I keep telling people that we can't go back to normal after the pandemic because normal wasn't good enough. Normal meant that tens of millions of people in this country were hungry, the richest country in the history of the world. We all should be ashamed of that. And that's why this White House conference matters. And, we had a White House conference in 1969 that did some good things. WIC, came out of that. The Women's Infants and Children's Program, kind of improvements to the SNAP program, child nutrition, a whole bunch of good stuff came out of that. But if we go back and with a critical eye, one of the things that we could have done better in 1969 was elevate the voices of people with lived experiences. The people could tell us what works and what doesn't work. And so this conference is actually going to listen to people with lived experiences like the ones quoted in this report. And that matters because we need to respond to the needs of real people in this country. So again, thank you, Joel, for commissioning these reports and giving us concrete data on what we can use in the fight to end hunger. This is incredibly important as we work our way to the September 28th date, which I believe will be transformational. And just one final thing about the conference. This is not a one and done thing. It's not we do a conference and on the 28th, everything's going to be solved. This is the beginning of an effort. This is the beginning of an effort to not only set the goals and a plan in place, but then to give us all the responsibilities to implement that plan. I want to thank the Biden-Harris administration for making this a priority. I mean, we can do something really amazing and historic here. And again, thank you to everybody on this call for all that you have done to contribute to this effort.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairwoman DeLauro.
Thank you so much. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be able to join with you, Joel, and with Jim McGovern and with everyone who is on the line. And I tell you, Joel, the work that you have done to grow Hunger-Free America into what is a champion, a respected champion for Americans struggling to obtain nutritious food. And just to play off of something that Jim said, there is no one in this country who should go to bed hungry. We have an abundance of food. We are not a nation without food food production. And so some countries, just have to import all their food. We don't. We produce it, and no one should go hungry. So you inspire us, Joel, and the entire team does. And, in terms of, a very simple philosophy, what you have is ending hunger lifts us all. And in fact, it does. We could not agree more. And to be with Jim McGovern, who just has his entire career has been, a portion of it has been truly devoted to the issue of hunger in America and how we can have a hunger-free America. And what he does with the Hunger Caucus, there isn't a moment where Jim McGovern doesn't focus on this issue, and he brings it up at every opportunity he can. And he was the true champion for the summit, the White House summit later this month. And it honestly would not have happened without his doggedness of saying that we have to do it, we have to do it. And I was so pleased to be able to partner with him in looking at with what we expend in the budget on some things that, may or may not make a difference. The amount of money that we spend in order to deal with this summit it's budget dust in comparison to what the effect can be. Benjamin, thank you. I have a very high appreciation for people who deal with polling data and the work that you do. And thank you very, very much, and for your generosity as well. This is, the data, you can't dispute the data. It talks about SNAP. It talks about the child tax credit and the benefits that have gone such a long way to helping working and middle-class families, the vulnerable around this country. Just a snapshot of the last couple of years. They've been difficult, very difficult. Thousands of people fell ill. Loved ones were hospitalized. People lost their jobs. Small businesses closed. Schools closed. Childcare almost collapsed in this country. So, and the pandemic claimed the lives of more than 1 million people in the United States. In my state, almost 12,000 people. And before that, and if we were talking about what the data shows is that people were struggling with pay not keeping up with the costs of health, childcare, housing, education. We've emerged 2 years later, but people today live paycheck to paycheck. That is the economic fact. Taxes are high, drug costs are outrageous, and the biggest corporations and the billionaires use their money to rig the game. We've got spiking energy costs, a Ukraine war, so you've got a cost of living crisis, and people need help. They need a break, and they need a government that looks out for the middle class, for working families, for small businesses, for the vulnerable. And inflation and the rising cost of living is a daily assault on every single working person in this country. And I'll just say something about Washington, and Jim mentioned Washington. Washington, we're talking about how many jobs were created last month, but you know what? Wages did not go up during this period of time to keep up with rising costs. So in many respects, Washington doesn't get it. Working people have not seen a real pay raise for years. And companies are reaping huge profits. And again, people need a break, which is why, along with Jim McGovern, we have fought for and will continue to fight for a boost to the SNAP benefits. And I might tell you, we won't recount it here, but we can both tell you about what a struggle it was to get the school lunch program extended for the summer. Just for the summer. It shouldn't have been that way. We're talking about feeding kids. And the brick walls we ran up to all of the time, and we had to pay for it all in order to provide this for people. And we know about SNAP benefits, $1.67 in economic activity for every dollar spent. We were able in the American Rescue Plan, that 15% boost in the benefits. We dealt with the thrifty food calculation, and SNAP participating households have seen a historic 21% increase in food assistance. So SNAP is not only good for countless families across the country, but for the economy. It is good for the economy. So much more that we can do. And that's why we continue the fight. and I will, fight to my last breath about an expanded child credit that puts money. The whole point of today and what we ought to be doing is putting money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. Hunger and poverty were problems before the pandemic, made worse by the pandemic. These are problems that people talk about around their kitchen tables. They do that in my community and they do it all over the country. So part of the answer here is to deal with hunger and poverty is to raise workers' wages, combat inflation, cost of living, put money into people's pockets, which is why we were, when the president signed the bill into law with the child tax credit, transformed the country. I have never seen, and you are all students of public policy and federal programs. I've not seen a federal program that met its mission in such a short period of time and really worked. The largest tax cut for working families in generations. I'm glad, even though the Senate allowed it to expire at the end of last year, it is a high priority for Democrats going forward. And we're going to use it in this upcoming election, et cetera, because it is so important. You pointed out, Joel, so did Jim, food, childcare, rent, utility, gas, kids' education. And your survey shows just how critical the expanded and improved child tax credit was to helping parents put food on the table. The 83%, they could not obtain enough or healthier food. The one quote that stuck out to me from the survey about CTC and the additional benefits, this is the quote. It means that we didn't have to buy the cheap food and you can get more healthier options instead of getting frozen meals or hamburger helper that's loaded with sodium and makes us gain weight. And all the data, your data, Joel and Benjamin, you can look at Columbia University, the Center on Poverty and Social Policy, talked about the reduction in food insufficiency and the payments in July and August, 7.5 percentage point, a 25% decline in food insufficiency among low-income households with kids. Children's Health Watch, a 26% decrease in food insufficiency, 12% increase in when it expired in February, a 12% increase in food insufficiency in households with kids. So we have all of the data that we need in order to be able to put into a practice a very important and critical public policy. Jim and I heard this quote, and it's heartbreaking. And this is the quote: "We will be living paycheck to paycheck and won't have enough food to feed my whole family. A few nights a month, I will go without eating just so my children can." It's a simple bottom line, my friends. Expanded SNAP benefits, expanded and improved child tax credit, a lifeline for the working class. CTC was the largest middle-class tax cut that we have seen in a generation. 4 million kids lifted out of poverty. It will help families dealing, as I said, with inflation and rising costs. These are important investments that are worth making, and that's what we have to do. And you know that both of us will continue to fight for these efforts. And I think the summit, as Jim has pointed out, will reflect on nutrition and on hunger, and just like the summits all those years ago, we can look at what we need to do is to come out with the public policy that is going to be good for our future. As I said, you know that you have our word, both Jim and mine, to continue to fight to expand these programs. All I can just say is thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this effort. I'm thrilled to be an ally with all of you in these fights. And I'm proud of our ability to work together, and we will win together when we fight together. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Thank you so much, Congressman. I swore to your schedulers this would be no more than 30 minutes. You fit it in at the last minute. So if you can stay, great. But if not, if there are any questions on that you want to pose to any of us that can stay, go ahead. I saw at least one reporter on. She may have hopped off. We'll start with any press questions. Again, if any of you have to go, we totally understand. And my email is jberg@hungerfreeamerica.org, jberg@hungerfreeamerica.org. And anyone want to communicate with me afterwards can go to that number. And also let me also plug the USDA Hunger Hotline that we run on behalf of USDA at 1-866-3-HUNGRY. That's 1-866-3-HUNGRY. And anyone watching who needs food help, we can connect you with SNAP, WIC, or pantries and kitchens, near me. Near you. More importantly, any questions or comments? And I know there are some very esteemed colleagues on the call, so I want to thank you for all your incredible work there. Well, if not, everyone's very busy. It's the first day back from Labor Day. I just want to thank everyone for your work, and together we can build the movement and will build the movement necessary to end hunger in America by ensuring everyone can afford healthy food and delicious pizzas. Thank you.
Abits, right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks one and all. Take care, Jim.
Bye, Rosa. See you later. Bye.
Ciao.